welcome back to the Astrology of Things. I'm your host and certified astrologer, Sheena, and today I wanted to talk about Virgo and Vulcan, and Vulcan being the ruler of Virgo. Now, I know this is not a traditional or modern understanding and attribution that we have with Virgo, but this is something I've come across in some older astrology writings, and I wanted to talk about it. So let's get into it. So I originally came across this attribution of Vulcan to Virgo in a book called From Pioneer to Poet by Isabelle M. Pagan, and it was written in 1911. So this is a very old astrology book, and I came across this book through a website called astrolearn.com, which you can go there yourself now and purchase the PDF download. So in Isabel's book, here's an image of the signs and their ruling planets. So we can see, if we look down to Virgo, she classifies Virgo as the businessman and the ruler as Vulcan, and describes Virgo as the nature, practical utility, purity, and health. So Isabel's work really stood out to me because it allowed me to keep an open mind to receiving insights and knowledge about astrology that challenge our current understandings today and challenge what we currently know and how we think about astrology. I think there's a lot of opportunities for us as astrologers to get more accurate in our predictions, in our chart analysis and readings. And I think part of it is beginning to challenge our current understandings of how astrology works, what planets are assigned to what house, or what planets are assigned to what zodiac signs, the meanings of houses, things like that. So her book inspired me to really question and critique how we see the foundations of astrology and how they've been set up. So a little bit about Vulcan, the planet. So as I mentioned before, Vulcan is a mysterious phantom planet that is hypothesized to be between the Sun and Mercury. And it was first discovered in 1859, and since then it has gone back and forth between being classified as a planet and declassified as a planet. And so today it's classified as hypothetical. So here is a time lapse that will show you that relationship that Vulcan has to the Sun. Now, I know this planet is theorized to be there, so I'm not sure how Astral Gold is calculating the placement of Vulcan, but Astral Gold will show you Vulcan in the chart. So in this time lapse, I just isolated out the Sun, Vulcan, and Mercury so you can see the dance that Vulcan and Sun is making and the dance that Sun and Mercury is making in relationship to one another. Vulcan is the symbol or the glyph that looks like a downward facing arrow. The Sun is the circular glyph, and Mercury is the remaining glyph shown there. So in looking in this time lapse, you can see that Sun and Vulcan has a much closer relationship than Mercury and the Sun does. And one thing that sticks out to me is that Vulcan changes direction a lot more often than Mercury does. So it seems here that Vulcan is changing direction from direct to retrograde about once per zodiac sign season, while Mercury only goes retrograde about 3 to 4 times a year. So Vulcan is used predominantly in esoteric astrology. So I wanted to read what Astro Gold, the astrology software, I wanted to read their description of Vulcan and its meaning in an astrology chart. So Vulcan is more commonly used in the field of esoteric astrology. It has yet to be officially discovered, and therefore its position is still open to speculation. Esoteric astrologers believe that Vulcan is a powerful planet and will be discovered only when humanity is ready to use its tremendous power. It represents the power to smash or break down crystallized matter and form, to pave the way for the fusion of new forms. Its speculative position shows us where we need to break down the old in order to forge the new. So I thought this description was simple, but had a lot of value in terms of Vulcan's meaning. And for you to appreciate the description a lot more, I think first have to know the mythology behind Vulcan. So in Greek mythology, Vulcan was called Hephaestus, or Vulcan was personified through Hephaestus. So Hephaestus was one of the 12 Olympian gods, and he was the god of fire, metalworking, forging. He was a carpenter, an artisan. He created sculptures. He created tools, weapons, jewelry to adorn the gods, to armor the gods, to protect the gods. So he was able to bring form from an idea, from a concept, bring it into form through the workings of his hands, through the workings of his craft in his blacksmith studio. And I find it interesting because Hephaestus, he's being hidden away in the dark. He's working on his tools, he's working on the items he's creating for the gods, but it's in the dark. And even there's more to the story, actually. So Hephaestus was born as ugly, so he, stayed hidden away in his blacksmith shop, hiding away, keeping his face hidden, but he was able to turn out and create these beautiful pieces, these beautiful tools and weapons and jewelry. But it's interesting how Vulcan today is known as this mysterious, phantom planet that they can't quite find. They think it's there, but when they look, they can't find it. But I think it's because it's so close to the sun, it's not going to be easy to find. And maybe it's inside of the sun. So thinking of Vulcan as Virgo's ruler, we can start to see their correlation once we look at a blacksmith's process and job responsibilities and see the similarities to Virgo's characteristics and traits. Virgo brings attention to the finer details, it works to achieve perfection, and is a tough critic of its work. Virgo's malleable earth speaks to the metal that changes form amidst application of intense heat in order to reshape and refine it into something that can be utilized or used to adorn. Also thinking about Vulcan as the ruler of Virgo, I started to then attribute the hands to Vulcan as well. So we know in medical astrology, based on Mercury being the ruler of Virgo. Mercury rules the hands. But, you know, as I've shifted my perspective and started seeing Vulcan as the ruler of Virgo, Vulcan is then the ruler of the hands. And to me, the mythology behind Vulcan aligns so much more to the hands than the mythology of Mercury and Hermes. Hermes was known as the trickster, the messenger god, the god of communication and commerce. He was the god who could sell you anything and trick you into anything. He's very intellectual, but they don't talk about Hermes in the mythology. They don't talk about him making anything, which leaves out the hands. But when we think and look at Hephaestus or Vulcan's mythology through Hephaestus, he's using his hands to literally make goods, to make products for the gods. And to me, thinking about that relationship, it feels much more clear to me. And again, looking at Virgo's opposite, Pisces. Pisces is the ruler of feet. So then the opposite of Pisces would rule the hands. At least that's how I think of an opposite or a complementary piece of the body. One final thing I did want to mention is, how do we then separate Mercury from being the ruler of Virgo, and how can we test that? So I think it's going to be harder to test because Vulcan travels closely to the sun as well. So typically, if we look at a chart, Vulcan and Mercury is going to be in the same sign. So it's going to be harder to separate out Mercury versus Vulcan as being the ruler of Virgo, and being able to test that with real horoscopes. But that's some research that I want to dig further into and test myself. All right, well, that's all I had to share with you today. So I hope this topic sparked your curiosity, and definitely check out the From Pioneer to Poet book. You can find it on astrolearn.com, or you can buy older books that you may find on eBay or Amazon, so you can get access to this content. So I hope to see you back on the channel sometime soon. Until then, have a good one.